Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the Online Edge podcast. My name is Lee. This is Luke. Where the hell is he?
He's with his grandma.
Well, thank you for joining us today for the Online Edge podcast. Since I'm by myself today, this is going to be a short and sweet one, but I think that it's going to be really impactful if you are asking the questions, what platforms you need to be on and you need to have your business on when it comes to social media. So I get this question absolutely constantly. I understand why I get the question a lot, because there's a lot of people out there advocating for be on every single platform. And if you're a huge business and you can afford the staff to be on every single platform, then do that. But for so many small and medium-sized businesses out there, you cannot, that's just not an option. And so what I always recommend is, man, how many can you be on and be on consistently? And if you can be consistent at it, then that's the number, whatever number you can be consistent at, that's the number to pick for how many platforms you need to be on. So the ones that we'd recommend today, we're in the start of 2020 right now. If you do anything that you're on, if you're going to be doing paid advertisement, Facebook is going to be the first one I'd pick. And the reason for that is because it has over 2 billion active users at this point. You're not going to find another social platform that has anywhere close to that amount of people on it. So your customer is on Facebook, in all likelihood, your demographics on Facebook. That's going to be the first one that I would recommend. But Facebook is very much a pay-to-play platform right now. So if you don't have an ad budget, then maybe one of these other platforms would be better for you. Another one right now that everybody's talking about, it's incredibly fast growing, is Instagram. Instagram has a lot of the upsides that Facebook has because they're owned by Facebook, which means that you can target the ability to micro-target on Facebook is also on Instagram, because you can build advertisements through the Facebook ad tool to hit people on Instagram as well. So Instagram is fantastic, but because Instagram is so fast growing, there are so many businesses trying to be relevant on Instagram right now. And as a result, while I would recommend a lot of businesses to be there, if you only have the ability to be on one platform, Instagram may not be the best place for you. So what I would recommend for you to do is to pick 2 or 3 platforms that you feel like you can be consistent at posting on. And by consistent, I mean at least 2 to 3 times a week, but you're really not going to be posting too much nowadays because of the way algorithms have changed, because of how many posts actually show up in the news feed. If you decide on Instagram that you're going to post 4 times a day, if those posts are relevant and good, solid posts, that's not going to be too much. So we talked about Facebook, we've talked about Instagram. Let's move over and talk about YouTube for a second. If you have a national presence, if you have a product that you're selling nationally, if you have a service that anybody in the United States can participate in, then YouTube is a fantastic place to be. One of the reasons for that is because YouTube is owned by Google. And because it's owned by Google, Google prioritizes it in its algorithm. And so there's a lot of different things that YouTube does very, very well. If you or part of your team is talented on video, then YouTube probably is a great place to be. And even locally, we have a number of different clients that we work with that we build out content for, and they're local businesses. They're just serving a 50-mile or a 60-mile geographic area, and YouTube has served them really, really well. It does local now better than it ever has before. And so again, if you're willing to take the time, now YouTube is probably the platform that requires the most investment to create the content to begin with, because you have to have cameras, you got to have lighting, you got to have audio covered. But YouTube is going to be a fantastic platform for so many people. And again, I always ask the question, is this platform going to be here 2 years from now, 3 years from now? In our previous podcast, I said no to Snapchat. And so we don't put a lot of stock in that because we don't feel like it's a good investment of something that's going to be around for a long period of time. However, Facebook, Instagram, and yes, YouTube, these platforms are going to be around for years and years to come. Unless something massive happens, Facebook and Google are companies that are not just protecting these platforms, but pouring an incredible amount of resources into them. these platforms are going to be here for a very long time. And so YouTube is definitely one to consider investing in. Another one would be LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has, if you do B2B at all in your business, LinkedIn might be the first platform to be on. LinkedIn has become a content platform where you can post real content for real people to consume. And so again, if you feel like you can be consistent on that, then LinkedIn is a great one to pick. Twitter is one that a lot of it gets talked about a lot. The news talks about who's tweeting what, and press releases get released that way a lot of times. But that's actually one that doesn't do well when it comes to sales. Years ago, IBM released their Black Friday report, and Twitter got credited with 0% of online sales. Not just like 0.00001%, actually zero sales. Now, that's probably changed between whenever that was, 5 years ago and today. But nonetheless, that's just not what that platform is meant for. And so as a result, a lot of the businesses that we work with, and again, unless you're needing to do press releases on a regular basis, Twitter's not a platform that plays very well locally and that does very well even nationally if you're just able to be on one or two platforms. If you're able to be on one or two platforms, in all likelihood, Twitter is not going to be the one that is going to serve your business the best as far as customer retention, serving customers or clients. It just doesn't do well when it comes to that. So we talked about some of the platforms and why to be on each of them, some of the strengths of each of them. Let's talk now about some questions to ask while you're considering what platforms to choose. One of them would be where your customers are. So if you are a business that is serving young moms, so moms with kids that are 6 and under, and that's your target audience, then a platform like Instagram is where you need to be. Every young mom in America is on Instagram, and that's probably most moms in America's primary platform that they consume content on, that they create content on. And so that's an easy one. It's like, okay, Instagram is one that we need to be on. Then after that, you have to start saying, okay, this is going to be our main platform. This is where we're going to put the majority of our resources. This is, maybe Facebook is our secondary platform, and maybe YouTube's our third. And so we're going to be, 2 or 3 times a day on Instagram, and maybe twice a week on Facebook, and maybe once a week on YouTube. And that's what our commitment to creating content is going to be, and our commitment to supplying content to social platforms are going to be. Now, if you're in an industry where you're serving blue collar workers, then YouTube or Facebook are probably going to be the platforms that you're going to be on. Man, YouTube is a really interesting social platform because it's really two things in one. It is one of the largest social platforms, and it's also the second largest search engine in the world, right behind Google. People go to YouTube to get answers on all sorts of things. And so if you are in industries that are service-related industries, and you can give easy, free tips and tricks on a YouTube channel, it is a fantastic, fantastic way to stay in front of potential customers on a consistent basis, where you're answering basic questions, and then when they have a big question, when they have a big problem, you become the authority where they can contact you. So think through, take some time and dive into, here's who my customer is. Here's the platforms he or she is most likely to be on. We want to make sure that we are first and foremost on the platforms where our customers are. If you're serving, again, blue-collar workers, then Twitter's probably the last platform that you want to consider being on. Snapchat's probably the last platform that you want to consider being on. Maybe even Instagram is down the list, whereas for so many demographics, it's number one. You've got to decide. You don't want to be on the trendiest platform. You want to be on the platform where your customer lives. The last question is this. So we talked about different types of platforms. We talked about where the platforms your customer's on. Let's talk about platforms where your competition isn't. And here's what I mean by that. I mean, so many of the people that we get to serve are in industries that are still brand new to digital marketing. Maybe your competition has a Facebook page and they post every 2 months or something like that to the Facebook page. Maybe a lot of your competition may not have an Instagram page at all. We have a lot of clients that are bringing on. We're creating those platforms for them for the first time. Many of the clients that we have don't have a YouTube presence at all. So we're creating those platforms for them for the first time. Ask the question where your competition isn't. So as you survey the web and decide the platforms that are going to be best for you, maybe being on Instagram, and if all your competition's on Instagram, isn't the place to actually try to go and stand out. So many people, this actually brings me to another point. So many clients that I talk to look at their competition, and they look at their competition not to see what they're not doing so they can enter into those things. For instance, maybe your competition hasn't started doing video content at all, and you see that as an open lane that you can jump into and be the first in your industry, in your area, to be doing great videos. So many people look at their competition to copy them, not to figure out where their downfalls are, so that and where there's open doors for you and your business to walk through. So, yes, look at competition. Yes, look and see what they're doing, but not always to copy them. In fact, usually not to copy them, because if you're just copying them, it's just we're all just kind of diluting everything. You want to produce the best content and be the most consistent and the highest quality on every platform that you're on, and you want to be that much ahead of your competition. So, as you're thinking about the platforms to be on, consider platforms where maybe all your competition's not there yet, but your customers are, and say, man, I want to prioritize these places. In so doing, what you'll find is you'll find it easier to amass an audience. Whereas if competition starts coming in 2, 3, 4 years later, it's going to become a lot harder for them to amass an audience, because it's just a crowded space at this point. The choices are there. There's a plethora of options at that point of who to go to, of who to start following, of authority figures trying to speak at that point. But if you can be one of a few voices in your arena speaking on a platform, you'll find an audience. And the audience will be much easier to gather than it would be otherwise. So, what platforms to be on, considering the ones that are going to be around for a while. Where your customers are. Where's my demographic? When I'm trying to be out there and be on the web, if I'm going to spend time and effort and resources on growing these audiences, where are those audiences, so that I'm making sure that I'm in front of them consistently? I don't want to waste money being in front of people that aren't my audience. I want to be in front of my audience. And then where isn't your competition yet? Where can you beat them? What platforms can you beat them to and be consistent and grow an audience way easier than you'd be able to after, or when the field becomes crowded? Those are some questions I think are going to be really, really helpful for you to ask. And then from there, we can start talking about how to advertise on that. What are some of the paid places that we can be? But the first questions to ask are those simple questions. Who's my audience? Where is my audience? And where isn't my competition yet? Because that is going to be how you're going to stick out the best. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. We want to help you succeed in digital marketing. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen.